guaranteed. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello. We have a broken iPad holder, which I've done up with parcel tape because I didn't have any gaffer tape, which is really unlike me. I've always got gaffer tape and cable ties and WD-40 because they're normally the answer to any problem.
Speaking of which,
I fixed your chair.
you fixed the chair.
I did. Honestly, we're not sponsored by WD-40, but I feel like we should be because A, I love the smell of it. B, it's brilliant. And C, I've actually used it on creaky handbags before as well.
Have you really?
Yeah.
I would like to be sponsored by coffee. Any
Coffee.
Something that's particularly good for focus and brain function and fatigue.
And flavour.
Yes, got to have some flavour.
Yeah.
And Monster, because I do drink a lot of Monster as well. Even though it has no effect on me, I just really like it.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't do a lot to help my body, do I? I put a lot of poison in there.
No. Needs must.
Needs must. Yeah.
Did you have any crazy dreams last night? Because it was a full moon.
No, I slept alone last night because Mike fell asleep on the sofa and I couldn't get him to he wouldn't wake up when I was trying to wake him up. But that happened to me the night before. And I have said to him, look, if I'm not responding, just leave me.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was just gone. He was out of it. So I was like, I'll just leave him. So I don't think I dreamt.
Okay.
Yeah. You?
I don't think I had any crazy dreams. I did, I have like an app on my phone which tells me what sort of stage the moon is at because I do love the moon. And so if it's a new moon, I'll do meditations that work for that. And then if it's a full moon, they have full moon meditations, which I do. Guided meditations by, what's his name?
Brian.
Yogi Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so that's that. But no, I don't think I always have crazy dreams, but I don't think there was anything particularly odd about last night.
Yeah. That's good.
So.
And Mark's got a little assistant with him.
Yes.
It's Reggie.
Reggie's with him, right?
He's made his way around us this weekend, hasn't he?
Yes.
The podcast. But I think Mark is his actual favourite person in the entire world.
Yeah. That's fine. That's okay.
We'll take that.
So today's case is a bit of a different one, and I'm going to start off with you because this is about a car crash investigation, and I know that you have had some serious car crashes before, haven't you?
I have. But I would just like to point out it's not my driving. I've always been a passenger. The only time I wasn't, and you can't really consider it a car crash, it was very icy, and I had to go up a curb, and Uncle Mick had to come out and rescue me.
Oh, yeah, Uncle Mick.
Because I was just petrified. And obviously before then I'd had my major car crash, which happened on my 21st birthday. We were going to celebrate. I did not celebrate that night.
No.
I ended up in hospital, neck brace, spinal board, all to be told, take some paracetamol and ibuprofen.
Right.
All right, here I am, how many years later, still suffering the consequences of that. So, you know, never mind.
Gosh.
I just realised how fen that came out then. All right.
Yeah, I mean, that was like a fen crossed with Bristol.
Bristol.
A little bit as well.
Yeah, Spencer's always with us.
He's literally always with us. He's the sixth member of the podcast because obviously we've got Reg and we've got Eddie as well. Seventh because Rich is always with us.
Yeah.
So there we go. We've actually got quite a lot of members of this podcast that are unseen.
Entities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
What?
The wind is making...
Is that the wind? It sounds like something howling.
We've got a spooky sound effect outside the window. I don't think the mics would have picked that up, but that was really like something you would download.
I quite like it. And it goes with the sort of the hue we've got going on as well, like the greeny purple hue.
Yeah, I'm sort of hoping when these videos come out that my face doesn't look like some sort of
I think shadow,
Halloween.
Yeah, but that adds to the effect.
Yeah, but I don't want like shadows under my eyes and stuff like that.
Gosh, she's looking tired.
Anything that makes my nose look any bigger. Right.
You don't have a big nose.
I do have a big nose.
But you just got footballer's knees.
Yeah. was going to say something else, but I'm not going to because it's inappropriate. So, right, on with this case. So this case is actually from a documentary which was produced back in 2018 for the BBC, but it's recently been released on Netflix, and it is called Car Crash, Who's Lying?
Ooh.
And
I tell you who's lying, the guys that dressed up in a bear suit.
they are, and if you listened to that spooky chat, you will know what we're talking about. If you haven't, go and listen to it.
Absolutely.
So, also, just a note, we're trying not to swear in these episodes anymore. So there's lots of goshes. So if
That
you want
seems to be it.
to play a drinking game, you can drink every time I say gosh.
We are not encouraging you to drink.
No, you could be drinking anything. You could drink orange juice,
Yeah.
you know?
Get that vitamin C.
All right, so this documentary takes the viewer literally into the midst of an intense investigation into a car crash with reconstructions, police body cam footage, which there's quite a lot of, and CCTV as well.
I like watching things with police body cam footage.
It's quite immersive.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the first documentary I've ever seen like this about a car crash before. And I don't
Sort of like aeroplane ones, isn't there? Like air crash investigation.
Yes.
Which he watches, and it terrifies me because I hate flying.
Yeah, I can't watch things like that. And to be honest, I wouldn't normally watch this, but it was for the podcast. So, you know.
Research purposes.
So, did you know that young people are 3 times more likely to die in a car crash than from guns, knives, and alcohol? Did you know that?
I didn't, but I can see. I can see it.
Yeah. So this is from the Break charity, and it's also more likely to be young men.
I've witnessed.
Yeah, young men driving a bit silly.
Yeah.
So not that all young men drive silly. Young women drive silly as well.
Which actually, do you know what? I know it's a bit of it's kind of like a connection. Like, so my car insurance is due on Christmas Eve. The worst time car insurance could be due.
Really, it is, yeah.
And I got my renewal through, and it was nearly £800. And I've been driving since just before I turned 21. I'm 35 now. I've never had a claim, nothing like that. And it shot up by many hundreds of pounds for no reason.
For some reason, I don't know what's going on at the minute, but for some reason, car insurance has become... it was already ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was already daylight robbery. It's become a whole lot worse.
Yeah, and like, so that kind of pricing is that's probably something they would give it. Well, it's a bit less than what they would give a young male driver because they get penalised massively so, and evident from that statistic.
Yeah.
On a further search, I have found one for 250 quid. So.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's where the comparison whatsits do come in quite handy, because I had to use that when I was trying to find... It's really hard to find insurance for the Freelander.
Yeah.
People just don't want to insure it. And actually, that's kind of a good point, which I'll pick up on as we go through the story. But yeah, so I'll kind of incorporate that as we go. So on Saturday, January the 23rd, in 2016, in the early hours of the morning, a car full of teenagers were driving down the B2177 Southwick Road in Portsmouth. B roads in this country are generally country roads, so they're quite small. And this road was known as somewhere where kids would rag their cars.
Right. Is it a straight?
Quite a long straight there. There's no one else nearby, so they probably feel like it's safer to do it there.
Maybe.
Although that's...
But I think I know what the B stands for in B roads, because they're country roads, because they're bar steward roads.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually really like country roads.
That was me trying not to swear.
I still think that didn't... I still think you just said it in a different way, so it's still swear.
It's a bar steward.
Okay.
Right. Oh, he gets it now. Yeah.
So, the car left the road at approximately 70 miles an hour, overturned and crashed into a tree on the verge. When the police arrived, they saw the catastrophic accident and one of the teenagers sitting on top of the wreck, cross-legged, smoking a cigarette.
Oh my God, I heard this story.
Have you?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
Mark's watched this episode as well.
Have you actually?
His parents had it on when he was picking up
okay.
Eddie.
It has proved a very, very popular documentary. It's for some reason it's done
to
really,
watch
really
it,
well.
but yeah, no, I've heard of this.
It's not a very long documentary either. It's really easy to watch. Well, no, it's not, because it's a disturbing subject matter, but you know what I mean. So Danny Lee was the driver of the Nissan Almera. He told police he was driving initially. The police officer tried to establish exactly who was in the car. Danny couldn't give any accurate information. He really was in shock. The police officer said the driver came across as very scared and perhaps in shock because, what he was saying wasn't making a lot of sense. It was obviously a horrific car accident and he's not sure what's gone on inside there.
Yeah.
So fire and ambulance services were called to the scene and attending officers said they'd never attended a crash like this. The car was unrecognisable, which is a lot coming from the emergency services because obviously they
see them so much.
Awful things all the time. So, that really is quite a thing to say. So they found an unresponsive male with a substantial head injury and another passenger covered in blood in the car. Both were in the back of the car and they didn't find anyone else. And strangely, no one was found in the front of the car. So one of the passengers was given CPR at the scene. This was all captured on police body cams. So when you watch it, you really do feel involved in it. It's quite jarring. The passengers were 18-year-old Sonny and 19-year-old Luke, the two that were just taken out of the back of the car. In the documentary, Sonny's best friend was interviewed and he said he'd actually been invited along that night for a drive, but he decided not to go with them. Things like this always get me because you just think, those sorts of decisions are very sliding door decisions, aren't they? And it's, just to me, it's quite spooky. So at 3 a.m, the police go to Sonny's house to let his family know he's in hospital. He had actually been put into an induced coma.
So he hadn't died, okay.
So he hadn't died, but they only gave him 50-50 chance of survival because he had a serious head injury. They also paid Luke's house a visit at 3:30 a.m. Luke's brother was there, but his mum was actually away that night, and he had to call her to tell her that Luke had died in the car crash over the phone, which was just, awful.
Finding news out over the phone is horrific, but then at the same time, if you know something's happened, you need to know now.
Exactly, yeah. So Danny Lee was tested for alcohol and drugs, but his blood test came back clean. He wasn't intoxicated. He was not driving under the influence. And, despite how he sort of appeared in the body cam footage, it was clearly shock.
Yeah.
He wasn't actually inebriated. He also came away from the incident with no serious injuries. They checked him out at hospital, but there was actually nothing wrong with him.
Nothing like that?
Nothing
Scrapes,
like
bruises?
that was reported, no. No serious injuries, no.
Oh, okay.
Had a few, cuts and things, but... The police arrested him that night on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. He also faced charges of driving uninsured with no licence. Which is where what we've just been saying about insurance and it being so high, it never ever drive without insurance. But if insurance companies are making insurance either unobtainable or extremely expensive, there's going to be an increase in this.
Yeah.
There is.
Absolutely.
That's just what's going to happen.
It's almost like they are part of the problem.
Yeah, of course they are.
Yeah.
Of course they are. The day after the crash, the case is handed over to a serious collision investigation unit. And on the face of it, it seemed like a straightforward investigation. However, when Danny Lee was arrested, he changed his story. So initially, in the body cam footage, he'd claimed to be driving the car. But then he said he was actually the passenger in the front of the car and that his cousin had actually been driving the vehicle. However, no one else was at the scene. It was just the three boys. The police did visit the cousin as soon as Danny Lee made this claim. He was apparently in bed asleep. He had no injuries or anything else to really suggest he'd been in a serious car accident. Yeah. He also had an alibi, which was provided by his father. Because Luke died in the crash, this investigation is then basically treated the same as a homicide would be. They need to find out what's happened. And, you know, they're getting conflicting stories. Obviously, the family wants to know what's gone on. And, of course, the police have to as part of their job. Luke, by all accounts, was an extremely well-liked boy. There's lots of interviews with his friends. One occasion, he actually stuck up for a kid who was being bullied and then ended up getting attacked himself because he stuck up for this boy. So he was a really good soul. Everybody had just amazing things to say about him. He loved the theatre and he really wanted to be an actor, specifically in films, he told his mum, because that's where the money was, which was very smart.
Oh, well, you know, he knows what he wants.
And I think it's really important to paint a picture of
Who
the
he was,
victims, because he really did sound incredible. Danny Lee was interviewed extensively, and he still claimed that his cousin Zach's was driving. Officers believed Danny Lee was driving. So, you know, really conflicting ideas, which is understandable because he's changed his story.
Yeah, you start to question
Exactly.
the credibility.
That's it. And obviously they didn't find another person at the scene. Danny and his friends described how much he loved his car, and they all said that he wouldn't let anyone else drive it. So, you know, the fact that there could have been another driver just really wasn't adding up.
Yeah.
Although Zach's had an alibi, investigators, of course, brought him in for questioning because Danny Lee is obviously claiming that his cousin Zach's was driving and therefore is responsible for the incident.
I would never implement you in anything.
Well,
Even
no.
if he were responsible.
Well, if I'd done it, you should just say, it's fine, I give you permission.
Yeah, but I wouldn't you know, if Danny's driving and he's trying to pin it on his cousin, I would never do anything like that.
No, exactly. So that, you know, that's another red flag because evidently, you know, as it seems, they were quite close. So, and their families were close. So they wanted to gauge his reaction to the claims, Zach's. He actually gave a detailed account of his actions that night. He didn't seem upset or emotional, and he just really didn't seem to be involved. You know, he was giving a lot of details about times, how much he's had to drink, the fact that he went to a kebab shop afterwards. You know, it was quite a detailed alibi.
Staple of a British night out, that.
There you go, exactly. Police also seized Danny Lee and Zach's mobile phones, as well as the clothing that they'd been wearing that night for analysis. But at this time, they didn't have enough evidence to charge either of them, so they released both cousins on bail.
Okay.
Sonny and Luke's friends were really surprised that both the boys had been let out on bail, and also it's a very close-knit community where they were, and people did not respond well to this. So, you know, they were getting abuse thrown at them in the streets.
Pitchforks out.
Yeah, people were starting on Danny. You know, people are scared. They're wondering what's happened.
Yeah.
And the fact they've been let out so quickly is probably quite alarming.
And they obviously might have heard as well that Danny's trying to lie.
Yeah. So, you know, people are going to jump to conclusions and act the way they act. So Luke's mum also felt that she actually couldn't leave the house in case she bumped into one of them because she just didn't know how she'd react.
Yeah.
You know, she's going through a lot, and to then all of a sudden, you know, be
confronted by them,
with possibly the reason why he's dead is just, you know...
You can't, in a way, you kind of can't... You know what's right and wrong, but I feel if you're grieving that hard and you don't have answers, sometimes you cannot be responsible for your own actions.
Oh, no, that's it. And there's no right or wrong way to grieve, and everybody grieves differently, don't they?
Exactly.
She described the whole situation as torture because she knew one of the boys was lying.
Yeah.
Zach's alibi was corroborated through CCTV and accounts from bar staff at the pub. There was also a receipt as well, and the fact that he'd been with his dad. However, the timings were slightly off. Oh. So the times he said they were doing certain things were not quite matching up with the CCTV, the receipt, and what the bar staff were saying.
How out of it?
Enough that the alibi didn't quite add up.
Oh. Hours, not minutes.
Yeah. It was quite...
substantial.
Quite substantial, yeah.
Okay.
Enough for them to say, hang on a minute, something's wrong. Mm-hmm. At this stage, the only person who could tell the investigators the truth was Sonny.
But Sonny's in a coma.
He knew what happened, but he was in a coma. Sonny was actually brought out of the coma at this stage, but nobody knew if he'd suffered brain damage.
It says memory loss.
Yeah, or if he would have any memory of the crash, what had happened before anything like that. You know, they just didn't know what was going to happen. And when he regained consciousness, the first thing he did was ask about Luke. He just wanted to know if Luke was okay and where he was. But at the time of him coming out of the coma, he couldn't remember anything else.
Right.
He was just really, really concerned about his friend.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you know, so he's woken up from this coma. He's obviously got a bit of a memory lapse. He's just discovering his friend is gone. Like, all of that.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And then he has sustained a head injury. So, you know, I mean, it's just incomprehensible.
And then anything he does say, because he's had an injury and you may not know the extent of it, can they trust what he's saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. So on the night of the crash, Luke was actually with his friends around one of their houses, and they'd all been asked to go for a drive, but he was the only one who went. And his friend recalled, and it's the same friend who he stuck up for who was being bullied, he recalled having a bad feeling about it, and he actually tried to stop Luke from going, but Luke wanted to go.
Was there a reason that gave him a bad feeling?
No, he just got vibes.
There's a lot to be said for vibes.
There's so much to be
And
said
gut
for vibes.
instincts
Exactly.
as well.
So we're going forward a little bit here. A month after the incident, Sonny was interviewed again about it, sort of properly in sort of interview settings.
Had he like fully recovered?
Yeah, I mean, he was in sort of, so he wasn't in, you know, the usual police interrogation room. He was kind of in a room with a camera, but it had sofas and it was a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah.
But this, by the sounds of it, this was his proper full interview since he'd woken up and sort of...
So we still don't know perhaps the extent of the injury. Okay.
So, but unfortunately, he still couldn't really recall many details. You know, Sonny had sustained a serious head injury, so the investigators...
You're doing better than me.
weren't really expecting him to remember anything.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't think anything was going to come of this. However, Sonny did recall the car being driven at speed, the driver steering the car all over the road, kind of going like this.
On purpose.
Messing about with it, on purpose.
That's just idiotic behaviour.
Exactly. And he remembers himself, Luke, and Danny Lee telling the driver, Zax, to slow down.
So it was Zax. He remembered.
So the investigators did worry that Sonny might try and protect Danny Lee, as they were very, very close. They were really, really close friends. He really looked up to Danny Lee. So there was a possibility that he could have been covering up for them. Or he remembered it wrong.
Yeah.
He's had a big head injury. And because a significant amount of time had passed since the incident, was he just repeating what Danny Lee said to him and taken that on as his truth?
Yes.
Could have done.
Exactly. Memory and can really play havoc with you. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and, you know, as we keep saying, he's had a head injury. He's gone through a lot of trauma. So he might be susceptible to suggestion. And at this stage, the definitive answer to this mystery is still very unclear.
Seriously? They still haven't found out?
Not at this stage, no.
Oh, we do find out though.
Yeah. It's not the end.
Oh, I thought you meant at this stage, like in time.
No.
Okay.
No. So what the police did was they actually seized all the boys' phones, not just Danny Lee and Zax. And investigators went through every text message from the boys. They also looked at CCTV from a petrol station, which shows that Zax was in the car that night. Both text messages and the footage prove that he was lying about his whereabouts that evening. So he was definitely in the car at some point that evening.
Yeah.
It's not definite that he was in the car when it crashed, but he's physically seen in the car by CCTV.
In which position?
So at this point, he is in the passenger seat.
Oh, I wonder if they swapped drivers.
Also, text messages corroborated this, you know. So the CCTV also showed that at this particular point in the evening, Danny Lee was still the driver. Sonny was a passenger and so was Zach's. Then they went to pick up Luke, so they hadn't actually got Luke yet.
Right, okay.
What it doesn't prove, however, is if Zach's was in the car when it crashed and who was definitively in charge of the Nissan at that specific moment. So investigators wanted to give Luke's family an answer. Of course they do. And obviously someone's lying here. Like, it's a serious crime. So the last resort was forensics. So they tested seatbelts for fibres that had melted into the belt from the friction caused upon impact of the crash. They could then compare these fibres that had been sort of like fused into the seatbelt with Danny Lee and Zach's clothing to see who was physically
in that seat
seat at what time. But the thing is, as is the case with sort of a lot of forensic evidence, there is a very long wait. So this is going on and on and on. And Luke's mum at this point is absolutely convinced that Danny Lee was the driver. So eventually forensic reports did come back and clothing fibres were indeed fused with the seatbelt, so they could use that as evidence. There was also hairs present, which had been pulled from the roots upon impact.
Yeah.
So they weren't
because there would, or even blood, like if they've hit their head or something.
The thing was with the drivers, there was no serious injuries.
Oh yeah, of course.
So they couldn't use that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it wasn't as if they were just hairs. They had been pulled out. So, they could say, okay, this happened upon impact. So this evidence, plus DNA evidence, meant that the investigators were able to prove who was driving. So they brought Danny Lee and Zach's both in for questioning. At this point, they know who was driving, but they actually want to give the boys one last opportunity to confess, to do the right thing and to tell the truth.
It's like a friends moment. They know. They don't know that we know that they don't know that we know. Yeah,
exactly. So the tactics for this investigation were to introduce one piece of evidence at a time because they knew the outcome and, they're just trying to coax it out of them. They just want the truth, basically. Providing them with text messages and then the CCTV footage, then the forensic evidence, and then, by which time none of this can be explained away.
Yeah.
So it was proven that Zach's was the driver of the Nissan when it came off the road. It turned out that Danny Lee and Sonny were telling the truth. So Zach's had paid for petrol and he wanted Danny Lee to give him a driving lesson. So they had pulled over and swapped seats.
Yeah. And so I wondered that.
Zach's had been drinking that night. Oh. So Danny Lee wasn't.
Yeah.
But Zach's was. But
did Danny Lee know that Zach's had been drinking? Because
you would think he'd be able to tell.
Because then I would say he's slightly at fault.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, at fault as well.
And the fact that, Danny Lee is knowingly in charge of this vehicle with no insurance, without a valid driver's licence.
Yeah. He's let someone who's intoxicated drive it.
Yeah. And, he's got passengers. And unfortunately, as it turned out, Luke's seatbelt didn't work. So he didn't even have the protection of the seatbelt. So eventually, Zach's pled guilty.
No other choice, really, did he?
To dangerous driving. Yeah, that's the thing. Like in the interviews, I definitely would recommend watching it because he's still adamantly saying, it wasn't me. And they're saying, but what about all this evidence? And he's like, I don't effing know. It's got nothing to do with me. This is wrong. Those text messages weren't from me. The CCTV footage is wrong.
Yes, because everything is wrong.
Yeah, it's... But, and they've got all this evidence, plus forensics.
I'm reading a book at the moment, sort of in between uni books, well, trying to, and it's called Every Contact Leaves a Trace. And it's about CSI and forensics and things like that. And it's true. So he's a numpty.
Yeah.
A complete pipe.
That's the thing. I mean, nothing's going to make what happened better, but just confess. Do the right thing and just tell the truth.
We've got you by the short and curlies, mate.
Exactly. So, eventually he did plead guilty and was to dangerous driving and was sentenced to 8 years in prison.
For killing someone.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like a lot, does it? Danny Lee has to live with the fact that he decided to let Zach's drive.
That is a form of punishment.
Yeah, definitely. He did actually plead guilty to 3 charges, including aiding and abetting causing death by dangerous driving.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm not saying that, him, like, that's the only punishment he deserves, is living with it for the rest of his life.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, because that is a conscious decision you made.
Yeah. And they were close friends of his, He was actually sentenced to 6 years in prison, which, I mean, I'm not a lawyer and or anyone like that, but it doesn't really seem like a lot to me for either of them.
No, absolutely not.
So Sonny was actually left with permanent injuries that affected his personality. He's not the same as he was before the crash, and his mental health is severely affected from the head injury, the trauma, all of the above. Yeah. Luke's mum blames Danny Lee for Luke's death, for allowing Zach to drive the car, and, Luke was just an innocent party in the crash.
Yeah.
Which is just...
I completely get that. They are both as guilty as each other. Definitely.
And I was reading some sort of like reviews and things like that on this documentary, and it, it really does hammer home, the consequences of bad decisions, and what might seem like an innocent bit of fun at the time, it can just go catastrophically wrong.
Ruin people's worlds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lives.
So many people were affected by that. Friends, family. And the attending officers, one of them breaks down.
Yeah.
And he's just said it was the worst crash I've ever seen. So it just spreads out like a disease,
Yeah, it's like a ripple.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I know it's not a massively long case, but when I saw it, I just thought it was very relevant to our podcast, and it just the fact that it is so immersive, and the introduction of the body cam footage and the CCTV, and you can literally piece it all together in real time. Basically, it's because then you've got the videos from the interviews as well, so it's it just
give that a watch.
Yeah, it's not a long documentary. I think it's about 45 minutes, but it really just drops you in the middle of it, and it just makes you think. Just to take second thoughts at these decisions, and. It's just, there were several things that obviously added up to the fact that Luke died. His seatbelt didn't work. Danny Lee and Zach's made bad decisions, but it gives me the heebie-jeebies. And again, I know I say this a lot, but it reminds me of Final Destination.
Yeah.
Because it's those steps that lead to, small steps seemingly that just lead to this absolute disaster.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from with that.
But it's very strange because you see the police car drive up to the car that's crashed on the side of the road, and the fact that Danny Lee's sitting on top of it is really odd.
Yeah.
Really, really strange.
Like, this is just, you don't expect it.
You don't expect it, and, obviously he is in shock, and he's trying to process it, but just the whole thing is very odd. Yeah. Really, really spooky.
Throughout this entire episode, I've like I said, I've witnessed a couple of things. There was one in particular that was really bad, and they've just been playing in my head this entire episode.
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. I can see the damage that can be done.
Yeah, it's just, and the thing is, I think when you're young, you do feel like you're invincible. I used to.
I'm too nervous to feel like... Don't get me wrong, like Mark will joke that I've got a bit of a lead foot and things like that, but generally speaking, I am so cautious.
Yeah.
Because I'm petrified from... Granted, it's not been my driving. I've always been a passenger and stuff, but I'm petrified of other people driving.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the one silver lining you can sort of take from this is the fact that there were no other cars involved, and that it was a quiet road, and it was only that one car, which is more than enough. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not saying, but if that was a slightly busier road and there were a couple of cars coming the other way, it happened around sort of 11:30 at night, so it's not that late, so there could have been other cars around. the fact it was just that one car involved was, if you can say it this way, kind of a blessing.
Yeah.
Because it can always be worse. But that's the thing. I mean, the amount of times, like Goobs has said, like, he did stupid things when he was younger in cars. I did, absolutely. I've made it my business to do stupid things throughout my life.
I think the craziest thing I do is I smoke in my car, and I now have an ashtray in there because I put it out the window. I was so scared of it coming back in and setting it on fire, because that's happened. Not quite fire, but I had like some receipts and some paper in the side of my car, and a cigarette butt came back in, and it started smoking. I was like, that day,
Final Destination again,
right?
Yeah.
And before I got an ashtray, which was only fairly recently, I would have cups filled with water.
Yeah.
I mean, call me disgusting. Yes, I am. I'm ratchet. I understand that.
Health and safety, though.
Yeah.
To be fair.
If you're going to smoke in your car, health and safety. And like I said, Mark will joke about me having a lead foot, but it's not to the point of where I am completely reckless. It will be on straight roads. It's never like, well, I'm not really explaining myself very well. Like, it won't be. I'm not going 100 miles an hour.
No, but also...
I'm not on twisty-turny roads. I'm not...
Also, it can be just as detrimental to be hesitant, because if you're at a junction, if you're slow to react, that can cause accidents as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So there has to be a balance.
There's the slow reaction, but there's also... If you're holding up traffic and people are getting frustrated, they're going to try and overtake you. And they'll maybe take risks thinking, I can see those headlights. But you don't know how fast that other car's coming the other way.
Exactly, yeah. That's the thing, like nervous drivers and hesitant drivers are just as dangerous. Yeah. They really are. And, it's... Well,
whereas even the ones that do drive extremely slowly, so they're not hesitant, they're not cautious, they're just...
causing a blooming obstruction.
Yeah.
A slow-moving obstruction. Because like you said, then people are more likely to try and get around them because people are impatient.
Yeah.
And I mean, now, well, not so much with my cars because my cars are older. Although saying that, on my Landy, I've got control on my steering wheel.
Have you?
I've never had that before. Oh my gosh. So I have volume controls on my steering wheel.
And you got heated seats.
Yeah, only yours works, but that's fine. But sort of back in the day, when we first passed our test, because we are older than some people, we had tape players, we had CD players. We used to be doing all sorts of things whilst driving, that split second could be catastrophic.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I joke about the fact that I used to be able to roll a roller with one hand while driving. That's really nothing to be proud of, but it just shows you how attitudes have changed.
Yeah, but I also think as you get older, there is more anxiety around things like that. You become less, not necessarily reckless, but like you become more cautious in general. Like it's just a rule as you get older. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And obviously you and I have just developed more and more anxiety as we've got older as well.
I've just bought a sweatshirt that says pancakes and panic attacks.
Oh my God,
my favourite food. Not my favourite thing to happen to me, but you know what I mean.
Panic attacks. But
it's my new tagline.
I love it. I'm here for it. But yeah, I think, when I watched this, it just made me think of the amount of silly things everybody does. Yeah. Not just in cars, but you think, God, if that went a slightly different way.
And, they just went on to live their lives and become amazing humans or, whatever path they went down.
That's it. And I know I always refer to popular culture, but that's how I make sense of the world. And my head just goes to Final Destination and you just think, oh my God. And then I start having an existential crisis again. So I have to then put Friends on. But, it's just... Yeah. To me, this is just as scary as the true crime... Well, it is partly a true crime case. Yeah. Because there's, death involved. But as the killers and serial killers, this scares me just as much.
Oh, just think that's more likely to happen.
Well, there you go. Yeah. And it's, we've said many times before, you can be the best driver on the road. You really can. You can be driving the safest car on the road. Yeah. But if someone else does something stupid...
Or, they're just driving it and a stone flicks up. smashes the windscreen, you initially, it
Anything.
can be this,
And I remember when we were filming the first season of Goblin, and we all had hire cars because we had to do a lot of driving, and there was a truck in front of me, and they had planks of wood on it, and they were not strapped down.
No.
And one flew off and hit my windscreen.
Yeah.
If it had literally been a few millimetres to my left, it would have smashed the windscreen or come through windscreen.
Yeah.
Luckily, it hit the pillar, the front pillar of the car, and just dented it and flung off.
God, yeah, but then that could have then impacted someone if someone was behind you,
Exactly.
that sort of thing. I think cousin Steph, she's travelled behind, I think, twice now.
The log lorries.
The log lorries.
Log lorries.
And
Sorry,
that
good.
is Final Destination. That is a scene.
But see, that's quite uncommon in our country because you don't get those big log lorries. So I don't know where she's seeing them. Steph, where are you seeing them?
We would, was it me and, I think we were driving to Derby to go see Mikey and Alex, and it was when the wind was really bad.
Ooh.
And you know the lorries that have got like it's not canvas, what are they called? Like the curtains on the side of them to like conceal and
whatever's
keep
inside,
it. The wind had pulled one back a little bit, so you could just see these pallets of things inside. Like it was only sort of like in the corner, but it was enough over that you could see that there was stuff. If that had come off,
Yeah.
and the pallets, and that is a natural disaster.
Yeah.
Well, not a natural disaster, but you know that's nature.
Yeah, that's it. And
So it doesn't have to be somebody else's stupid decisions or
no, it
anything
could just
like
be
that.
the roll of the dice.
Yeah, exactly, and that is what terrifies me about life.
Yeah, and that's why
I'm going to go sit in a room and never venture out again.
Exactly.
Just
That's
when
what
someone bring me coffee.
causes the existential crisis. I don't like driving behind anything with anything on it, any loads, and I try and get past them. I really don't like.
I don't like caravans because I remember being in a car once as a passenger and one, it was quite a busy motorway that we were going up. All lanes were filled, and this caravan just started indicating to come over, and we had to on the horn. So I don't like caravans.
No, I mean I don't like caravans anyway. You always get earwigs in caravans, and I hate earwigs. And I just don't like the thought of being in a caravan. It just seems like it's going to be damp and musty.
I went on caravan holidays with Axe, Chris, Julia, Steph and Dane.
Well, they probably
a lot
had a
when I
nice
was younger.
caravan, to be fair.
I don't remember earwigs.
I don't know why, but any time I've ever been in a caravan, there's been an earwig, and I just can't stand it. I hate them.
Yeah, they're not very nice.
No.
Oh, thank you for that, Helen.
Yeah, I am sorry. That's very disturbing.
Yeah, and you brought back some wonderful memories.
I do apologise. It was just such an interesting investigation.
I do want to watch it.
Yeah, I think you should, and it does put the fear of
God into you.
It really does, and but I like the fact that you brought up the insurance because it's not right to drive without insurance or without a license, but obviously people do, and the harder they make it with insurance, the more that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people really do need a car.
Yeah,
to get to and from. They can't, without a car they wouldn't be able to work.
exactly. I am going to say, I strongly believe that the cost of insurance and the cost of road tax, unless you're driving a Tesla, which I'm never going to do, is daylight robbery.
They've got our pants down.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least buy me dinner first.
Yeah. And I mean, I am going to start going on about the state of the roads, but that in of itself is dangerous.
Yeah. You go down a pothole.
Yeah.
You blow out on the tyre.
Exactly.
Or,
or if somebody swerves or, it just... And, even without that, it causes a lot of damage to cars. Who's paying for it? I'm spending 40 quid a month on car road tax. Well, I want to know where that's going. I want an itemised list of what that's being spent on. And
that should go towards repairing your car if they don't...
That's it.
Because it's their fault, they're not... Because they take shortcuts. They think, in the long... Rather than paying out the large amount that in the long term is going to work out cheaper, short fix, that doesn't last, and you've got to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's like a plaster over a sinkhole.
Yeah.
So Goober said that the money doesn't go on the road. A tiny fraction of the road tax goes on the road.
Then why is it called road tax?
I think that's ridiculous, and I want answers.
You people.
What else is it going on then?
Yeah. Go.
What's it going on then? I want to know. Big.
And it goes into a big pot.
It goes into a big pot. Well, they spend it on a big amount of pot. They probably do.
Big pot.
Allegedly, possibly, maybe that's what they're doing.
They probably do.
It certainly isn't going.
They probably do because they're all
the roads.
corrupt.
Yeah.
Getting blazo.
Getting blazo.
Right, so do we have, I think on that note, maybe we should wrap it up before we go on a massive rant.
Yeah. The thing is, I think sometimes it's healthy to get the rants out because
absolutely. And it's when these subjects come up as well.
That's the thing, and these kinds of subjects are so relatable because a lot of people will have experienced this or know someone very close to them who has experienced this. So go on then. What's your get in the bin? Get in your pocket.
Oh, get in the bin. Cling film. I don't cope well with cling film.
Right.
I get tangled up in it.
Right.
It gives me the ick. It makes
The
me
feel of it.
It.
Just the it as a general entity.
Yeah. Gives me the ick. Makes me kind of feel sick. And yeah, I just really struggle with it. Really struggle with it.
I can understand that. Yeah. Okay. Do you have a get in your pocket to counter that?
Poochie cuddles.
Yay!
Nothing's better than a poochie cuddle. And Mark's sat there with Reggie right now looking like a Bond villain. With his headphones on.
I don't have to think of a name. A Bond villain name for you.
Mr. Goober.
Mr. Goober.
No, because now it just sounds like your character in SpongeBob. Gouty Goober. You've done that to yourself now. That is never going away. And my random fact, my first car was a KA.
Love that.
Bought outside of a pub in Mildenhall from a cowboy. Head gasket went not long after I passed my test.
That is so random that you said something was bought from outside a pub, because I was actually thinking to myself, because that's the kind of thing I would do, is buy something from... Do people buy stuff from in pubs anymore? Because obviously we watch Brassic.
I open the trench coat and they've got a load of fake Rolexes.
That's it. Yeah. And obviously the bloke in Brassic is selling... what's it called? Not ether.
Chloroform.
Chloroform.
Yeah.
And he literally has jacket pockets full of chloroform he's selling in the pub. But I want to know, I'm just an open question to people. Do people still buy stuff in pubs?
Oh, that's
and
a good
what
question.
have you bought? I want to know.
And does it still work?
Does it still work?
So the KA I bought before I passed my test and things like that. I'd gone out for a couple of driving lessons in it. Didn't realise it had run out of petrol, and I stopped in the middle of Newmarket High Street.
Oh no!
And then had to somehow manage to if it along to a petrol station not far away. Somehow it was rusty. Like I said, the head gasket went not long after, and I was, it was only. What was it? Only 2 months after I passed my test that I had my really big accident.
Oh my God.
So I'd got a new job. It was when I started at the prison as a civvy, and it was really cold and icy. And my brother was seeing someone at the time who worked at the same jail but different job. And I was quite nervous because it was very back roady getting there.
Lots of B roads.
And, not anywhere where a salt lorry would go down.
No, they seem to miss those roads out.
So got Richard to drive us, and the inside of the windscreen just iced up, and it couldn't be cleared or anything like that, and the head gasket had gone.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was not good. That wasn't too long after I passed it. Yeah.
I feel traumatised for you, darling.
Thank you.
So Goobs is getting the bin, is waking up on the sofa.
I think I explained that earlier, didn't I?
Why is that? Because it makes you ache?
Well, he falls asleep on the smaller sofa.
Oh.
And he doesn't
Not
have
good sleep. Okay, yeah, so you feel a bit unrested. Unrested the next day? Yeah. I wouldn't take that. Get in his pocket is WD-40. I concur, sir.
Yeah.
WD-40.
Better on his ears now, innit?
Yeah, and I love the smell of WD-40. Yeah. If somebody could make that smell into a cruelty-free perfume that's like a car...
You're so bizarre.
Like a car-themed perfume for me, obviously, because I don't know if anyone else
Put
wants
some
it.
behind your ears.
Yeah, Goob said he'd
He'd
sniff it. Okay, so that's 2 customers they've got so far, if anybody would like to explore this.
Keeping on theme with the smells.
Yeah, his random fact is that he likes the smell of a wet dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I like the smell of dog paws because they smell like popcorn.
I like the smell of. I used to love the smell of Molly's ears and Reggie's ears.
Yeah. We always sniff behind Eddie's ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're weird. It's fine. We love it. So my get in the bin is the cost of insurance. They officially, insurance companies can absolutely do one. You're constantly mugging us off and I hate it. Get in pocket is the moon. I love the moon.
The moon.
The moon. I have books about the moon. I like to...
So you're not specifically loving the moon from the Mighty Boosh?
Oh, no, I do love the moon from Mighty Boosh as well. Oh, yeah.
I got... Who is it? Fish finger as big as a garage. To be fair, I never really watched the Mighty Boosh. The only reference I get are the ones that you do. Like, I got... who is it? Neil Armstrong, walking on my face. Buzz Aldrin, he's walking on my face. I just listen to Mark doing those and that's all I get.
Love that.
The other one, walking on my face.
Those of you, it's probably in America, who don't know what the Mighty Boosh is, just look it up. It's so bonkers random. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We love it.
Well, I've never really watched it properly. His references.
They're all very funny. It's very funny. So my random fact is that 4 of my cars now have been blue.
The Bug.
My
the
Fiesta was blue. My Bug was blue. I had a company car, which was a Mondeo, which was blue. And my Landy is blue.
Yeah.
So there's that.
But she's not feeling blue.
No.
I don't know what that was.
You can say thank you to Mark today.
Thank you very much to Mark Goober Gilbert, all of the above names at Park Lane Studios, for providing the sound, the visuals,
But not the content.
but not the content. He is not responsible for that. That is all on us, and we apologise. So thank you for being absolutely wonderful. Go hit him up at Park Lane Studios for all of your podcast needs. And recording needs.
Yes, he has
and editing needs.
Yes.
He does all the edits.
He has a recording studio.
He's brilliant, wunderbar. I love you. Yeah.
And then you can find us on LinkedIn /Cosmo
Linktree.
What did I say? LinkedIn. We're not on
definitely
LinkedIn.
not on there.
We're not on there. Linktree /Cosmo Carb. To apologise.
You can visit all the socials there. And you've got access to our email there as well. Mm-hmm. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, download.
Set alerts. So that you know when the shows come out and you can go, yes, I've got a new episode.
Tell us you like us so we feel special for once in our lives.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's that one for the day.
Yeah, thank you for sticking with us if you did. And until next time, stay spooky, bitches.